Hey, I just made a video about adding improper and proper fractions in French with the same worksheet. Now I'm going to make the same video in English. This is so that if you're a parent and you're helping your child out with their homework and you don't understand the French version, but you want to use the same techniques that they're using in the classroom, you'll be able to help them out. So I'll show the first example here that's already filled out. I'll explain what's going on. And then we're going to skip ahead to the third example, just because I did the second one in my other video in French. So now this worksheet that we're working with here is, I found it on matlibre.com. You can search this website and then also search the title here. I think that they're missing a T in the title, and it's worksheet number A. I'll put a link in the description, but there's a whole bunch. I know I said number A, but the worksheet version A. There's a whole bunch more versions on the website. So without further ado, let's check out this first edition. To add fractions together, the first thing we need to do is find a common denominator between these two first initial fractions. So what they've done here is they found that 60 is the smallest common denominator. In the classroom, we like to teach the kids to use the smallest common denominator, but really it's not necessary in maths, but it's a good habit to build. To find the smallest common denominator, you need to check all of the multiples, not all of the multiples, but you have to check the multiples of 4 and the multiples of 15. You find the smallest multiple that matches up. So for example, for 15, the multiples are 15, 30, sorry, I'm blanking here, 45, and 60. Now I could do the same thing for 4, but I'm just going to skip ahead. 4, 8, dot, dot, dot. We got 56 and 60. So you could write out that whole list. For smaller numbers, it's a little bit easier. Another thing that you can do to find a common factor is you can multiply the two denominators together. So here 4 times 15 will give you 60, but that's not always going to be the smallest common denominator. For example, if I were to have, let's say, I was working with halves and quarters, that means that if I would multiply one by the other, it would give me eighths. But if we're working with halves and quarters, we can just convert both fractions to quarters, and it would be a little bit easier. Anyways, so that's what they did here is they found that 60 was the lowest common denominator, and then they transformed both of these fractions. So this first one I'll color in green, turned into this one in green, this one in pink, turned into this one in pink. The way that they did that was they found that the lowest common denominator is 60. They asked themselves the question, 4 times what is equal to 60? Well, it's 15. And if I multiply the denominator by 15, I also have to multiply the numerator. And so 2 times 15 gives me 30. And 60, we already knew that was the denominator. For the second fraction here in pink, I've got 15. And I asked myself the question, 15 times what gives me that common denominator we found? Well, 4 times 15 gives me that common denominator. And now on the numerator, I can also do times 4. 17 times 4 gives me 68. So now we've got these two equivalent fractions that have a common denominator. We can now add them together. So now if I add just the numerators together, it gives me 98. And I won't add the denominators. That stays the same. From this point, I can simplify because both the numerator and the denominator are divisible by 2. I'm going to divide both by 2, giving me another equivalent fraction, but just a simplified version. And finally, this is an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these numbers aside here and make a long division. I'm going to divide 49 by 30. And so I asked myself, how many times does 30 go into 49? It goes 1 time. Put that up top. Now I've got a subtraction to do. So I've got 1 times 30 is 30. And that's a subtraction. So I've got 49 minus 30. It gives me 19. That means I've got, my answer is 1, R19. In French we do R. It means restant. That's how much is left. I'm not sure if it's L in English, but whatever. I'll keep it R for now because that's what your kids will have learned. So now with the 1, that's one whole, one entier. So that stays up front here. The R, that becomes my new numerator, and the denominator stays the same as it was before. This is my final answer. I'll clean this up here. This is my final answer to this first addition. And we'll do another example together that doesn't have all the answers out there for us. And I'll also show you another way to do it. So here on this third example, we could count out all of the bounds of 6, 12, 18, blah, 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 blah. That's going to take a long time. So instead, what I can do is I can cross multiply these fractions. It'll force me to have a common denominator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply 6 and 11. That gives me 66. That is going to be my common denominator. So right away, now that I know that's 66, I'm going to write 66, 66, and even 66 in the equals section here, because I know that denominator is going to stay consistent throughout, at least on this step. So now, because I need to transform the rest of these fractions here, I know that I multiplied my denominator here on this first fraction by 11. So that means I needed to multiply this one by 11. So the way that this works when we just multiply the two denominators together is we end up just multiplying the numerators by the opposite fraction's denominator. So here I'm going to multiply 4 by 11, by 11, which is going to give me 44, 44 on 66. For the second fraction here, I'm taking my other denominator. So I've got 6 times 40. 6 times 40, that gives me, is that 240? 6 times 4 times 10, yeah. All right. So now what I can do is I can add just the numerators together. I know the denominator stays the same. That gives me 284 on 66. This is something that I can simplify. I'm going to just do this in steps. I don't know if there's a bunch of, there's probably a bigger common factor, but what I like to do with a big fraction like this, I'll just divide it by 2 and see if I can do anything more from there. So I'm going to take it down to 33 on the bottom, and I'll divide the top by 2 as well. That gives me 142. Now, this is not divisible by 2 on the bottom, but I see that it is divisible by 3. So I wonder if maybe the top is divisible by 3. I can add all of the digits together, 1 plus 4 plus 2, that gives me 7. If that total, its sum, is not divisible by 3, that means that it's not a factor. So I don't see any other common factors that this could be. So I'm going to convert this now into a mixed fraction. So how I do that is I'm going to write out a long division. We got 142 divided by 33. How many times does 33 go into 142? I think it's 4. Let me just confirm. Yeah, it's 4. And so 4 times 33 is 132, which this is a subtraction. Now I've got 142 minus 132. That gives me 10. My final answer is 4R10. I take the 4, and that is my total whole numbers. My remaining numbers are 10, and the denominator stays the same, leaving me with 4 and 10/33. So that was another example on how to do that. If you're watching this video first, I'll put a link for the French video in the description, as well as a link for this worksheet. I'm hoping that this will help you help your child in their learning. And if you're a student watching this in English, I hope that it helped you out. Sorry if I have mixed up some of the vocabulary. I normally teach in French. So thank you very much. Good luck with this, and have a nice day.